Victoria Chen gripped her boarding pass with manicured fingers as the announcement for first-class boarding echoed through the terminal. This was supposed to be her victory lap, the final flight before closing the biggest merger in her company's history. She had no idea that Seat 3B would contain the one person who could melt the ice around her heart after 15 years of building her empire. Sometimes, destiny arrives in the most unexpected packages, a rumpled single father with kind eyes and a little girl clutching a well-loved teddy bear. If you've ever believed that some people are beyond change, that the walls we build around ourselves can never truly come down, then this story might just change your perspective. Before we dive in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that remind us of our shared humanity and the unexpected moments that transform our lives. Final boarding call for SkyWest Airlines Flight 1427 to San Francisco. Victoria Chen straightened her Armani blazer and strode toward the gate, her Louboutins clicking against the polished airport floor with military precision. At 38, she had perfected the art of intimidating without saying a word, sleek black hair cut in a sharp bob, posture rigid as steel, eyes that calculated your worth to the nearest decimal point. The gate attendant's smile faltered slightly as Victoria approached. "Good morning, Ms. Chen. We're delighted to have you with us today." Victoria nodded curtly, knowing the airline had been alerted to her presence. As CEO of Pinnacle Innovations, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in America, she was accustomed to this treatment, the nervous smiles, the extra attention, the carefully maintained distance. She preferred it that way. "We've upgraded you to our premium suite, Ms. Chen. Would you like to board now?" "Yes," she replied, not bothering with unnecessary pleasantries. Time was currency, and Victoria never spent a penny without calculating the return on investment. As she settled into her spacious seat, Victoria pulled out her tablet and began reviewing the final acquisition documents. Tomorrow, she would sign the papers that would absorb Rivera Tech, their main competitor, into Pinnacle. The move would make her company the dominant force in AI security systems and cement her reputation as the Empress of Silicon Valley, a nickname she secretly despised but publicly tolerated for its marketing value. Victoria had built Pinnacle from the ground up, transforming it from a struggling startup to a billion-dollar corporation through ruthless determination and relentless work. The cost had been high: no marriage, no children, no real friendships, just a growing collection of properties she rarely visited and awards gathering dust in her minimalist San Francisco penthouse. But it was worth it. It had to be worth it. She was so absorbed in her documents that she barely registered the commotion until it was directly beside her. "Excuse me, I think we're in 3B and 3C. Victoria looked up, irritation flickering across her face. A man in his late 30s stood in the aisle, attempting to manage both a squirming young girl and an overstuffed backpack. His brown hair was slightly disheveled, and his blue button-down shirt had a small juice stain near the collar. "Daddy, is this where we sit? Next to the lady?" The little girl, perhaps 6 or 7 years old, peered at Victoria with unfiltered curiosity. She clutched a worn teddy bear missing one eye, and her sneakers lit up with each step. Victoria stiffened. Children on flights were unpredictable variables, loud, messy, disruptive. She had specifically requested a quiet section. "I believe there's been a mistake," Victoria said coolly, addressing the flight attendant who had appeared behind them. "I was supposed to have the suite to myself." The attendant's face registered recognition, followed by dismay. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Chen. The flight is completely full due to the cancellations from the storm system. We had no choice but to." "It's fine," the man interrupted, his voice pleasant but firm. "We can see if there are other options. Lily and I don't want to inconvenience anyone." He smiled at Victoria, not with the usual intimidation she inspired, but with simple politeness. "I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Parker. And this is my daughter, Lily." Victoria noticed his hand was calloused, not the soft grip of a desk worker but someone who built things. He didn't offer it to shake, perhaps sensing her reluctance for contact. Daddy, I want the window. Lily bounced on her toes, seemingly unaffected by Victoria's frosty demeanor. The flight attendant looked desperately between them. I'm afraid there are no other options in first class, and economy is overbooked. Victoria weighed her options. Making a scene would waste valuable time she could spend finalizing her acquisition strategy. Fine, she said, returning to her tablet. It's a 6-hour flight. I'm sure we can all manage. Ethan gave her a grateful nod. Thank you. Lily, remember what we talked about? Airplane manners? The little girl nodded solemnly. Inside voice, clean hands, respect other people's space. She recited it like a well-practiced poem. Victoria raised an eyebrow, marginally impressed despite herself. At least the father seemed to have some control over his child, unlike the countless parents she'd observed who let their offspring run wild in public spaces. As they settled in, Victoria created an invisible boundary with her body language, angling away from them and raising her tablet like a shield. She had mastered the art of isolation in crowded rooms. An airplane seat would be no challenge. The flight attendant brought Victoria her customary pre-takeoff sparkling water with lime, while Ethan helped Lily buckle her seatbelt. Daddy, can I have my snack now? Lily whispered, though her whisper was more like a normal speaking voice. Not yet, pumpkin. We haven't even taken off. Remember, we're saving the special snacks for when we're in the air. Victoria caught herself listening to their interaction and forced her attention back to her tablet. The Rivera acquisition had taken months of planning. Their security technology was complementary to Pinnacle's AI systems, but their corporate culture was a mess, too many redundancies, too much employee coddling. She had already drafted the restructuring plan that would eliminate at least 30% of their workforce. Her phone buzzed with a text from her COO, Marcus. Rivera board getting cold feet. Rumors they're entertaining counteroffer from Global Tech. Need you to call when you land, Victoria felt a flicker of anger. After all the work, all the careful maneuvering, Rivera was playing games? She began typing a response when the plane lurched forward, beginning its taxi toward the runway. We're moving, Daddy. We're moving. Lily's excited voice pierced Victoria's concentration. Yes we are, sweetie. Remember to keep your voice down a little. Ethan gave Victoria an apologetic glance. First flight, he explained softly. Victoria nodded stiffly, returning to her message. The takeoff was smooth, and Victoria used the ascent time to draft a scathing email to her legal team about tightening the non-negotiation clauses in their preliminary agreement with Rivera. She was so focused that she didn't immediately notice when the plane leveled off and the seatbelt sign dinged off. Ms. Chen? Would you like your usual coffee now? The flight attendant had appeared at her elbow. Yes. Black, Victoria replied without looking up. And for you, sir? Miss? The attendant turned to Ethan and Lily. Could we get an apple juice for my daughter and just water for me, please? Ethan asked. Of course. And we'll be serving lunch in about an hour. Would you like to see the menu? Victoria waved her hand dismissively. The grilled chicken salad, no dressing. Lily leaned forward, peering around her father to look at Victoria. Don't you want dessert? Daddy says airplane desserts are special because they taste better when you're closer to the clouds. Victoria blinked, caught off guard by the direct address. Most children sensed her disinterest and avoided her. Lily, Ethan gently admonished, remember about respecting other people's choices? But Daddy, dessert is the best part. Lily protested. Victoria found herself responding before she could stop. I don't eat sugar. It's not productive. Lily's forehead wrinkled in confusion. Not product, what does that mean? Productive, Victoria corrected automatically. It means it doesn't help me accomplish my goals. Ethan gave a small smile. Lily believes eating dessert is very productive for happiness. Victoria almost said that happiness was an inefficient metric for success but caught herself. There was no point debating life philosophy with a child and her obviously sentimental father. Instead, she returned to her work, but found her concentration broken when Lily pulled out a coloring book filled with intricate patterns. "Those are rather sophisticated for someone your age," Victoria commented despite herself, noticing the mandala designs. Lily beamed at the attention. "Daddy prints them for me. He says I'm very advanced for my age." "Advanced," Ethan corrected gently. Lily likes challenges. The regular kid coloring books bored her after a while. Victoria nodded, noting the careful way the child stayed within the lines, her small tongue poking out in concentration. There was something methodical about her approach that reminded Victoria of herself as a child, before her father had redirected her artistic tendencies toward practical pursuits. The flight attendant returned with their drinks. As she handed Lily her apple juice, the plane hit a pocket of turbulence. The plastic cup tipped, sending juice splashing across Lily's tray table and onto Victoria's sleeve. "I'm so sorry." Ethan quickly grabbed napkins, reaching over to blot Victoria's expensive silk blouse. Victoria jerked back. "Don't." Her voice was ice. "This is Hermes. Water will set the stain." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, lady. I didn't mean to." Victoria felt a dozen pairs of eyes on her from surrounding seats. The last thing she needed was to be filmed berating a child and ending up as the next corporate villain viral video. "It's fine," she said stiffly. "Accidents happen." She reached into her leather tote and pulled out a small travel kit, selecting a specialized stain removal wipe. As she carefully treated her sleeve, she noticed Lily watching her with fascination. "How does that work?" the little girl asked, tears forgotten in her curiosity. Victoria hesitated, then found herself explaining, "It's a solvent that breaks down the sugars in the juice before they can bond with the fabric." "Like science?" "Yes. Chemistry, specifically." Lily's eyes widened. "I love science. My teacher says I ask the best questions in class." Victoria couldn't help but think of herself at that age, always asking questions, always wanting to understand how things worked. Before she realized what she was doing, she had handed Lily the packet. "See how it says, citrus acid neutralizer? That's what's working on my sleeve right now." Ethan watched the interaction with quiet interest. Lily wants to be a scientist or an artist. Or possibly a scientist who draws really good pictures of her experiments. Scientific illustration is a legitimate field, Victoria found herself saying. Some of the most important advancements in medicine and biology came from people who could accurately document what they observed. Lily bounced in her seat. "See, Daddy? It's a real job." Ethan laughed, a warm sound that seemed to soften the recycled airplane air. "I never said it wasn't, pumpkin." Victoria caught herself almost smiling and quickly composed her features. What was she doing? She had acquisition documents to review, strategy to finalize. She didn't have time for idle conversation. The moment of connection passed as Victoria deliberately turned back to her tablet. But something had shifted in the air between the three passengers in row 3. The invisible wall Victoria had constructed was no longer quite so solid. An hour into the flight, Victoria had made significant progress on her documents when the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we have a bit of bad news. There's a severe weather system developing over San Francisco, and air traffic control has implemented a ground stop. We're going to have to divert to Denver until the system clears. We apologize for the inconvenience and will update you with more information as it becomes available." A collective groan went through the cabin. Victoria felt a spike of anxiety. A delay could jeopardize everything. The Rivera board meeting was scheduled for tomorrow morning, and she needed to be there in person, projecting confidence and control. She immediately pulled out her phone to call her assistant, only to remember it needed to remain in airplane mode. The satellite Wi-Fi was notoriously unreliable, but she had to try. As she attempted to connect, she became aware of a small sound beside her. Lily was quietly crying, trying to hide her face in her teddy bear. "What's wrong with her?" Victoria asked Ethan, unable to keep the impatience from her tone. Ethan was rubbing small circles on his daughter's back. "We have a very important appointment in San Francisco tomorrow too," he said quietly. "It's a medical consultation we've been waiting for months to get." Victoria felt a twinge of something unfamiliar. "Is she ill?" The question came out more abruptly than she'd intended. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Lily has a rare condition affecting her heart. There's a specialist at Stanford who's pioneering a new procedure, but he only consults on cases a few times a month. If we miss this appointment, we might wait another 3 months for the next opening." Victoria looked at the little girl with new eyes. Despite the tears, there was a resilience in her small face that spoke of someone who had already endured more than her fair share of challenges. "I'm sorry to hear that," Victoria said, the words feeling foreign on her tongue. When was the last time she had expressed genuine sympathy? Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Daddy says it's okay to be disappointed but not to give up hope." "Your father sounds wise," Victoria said, surprising herself again. Ethan smiled faintly. "Just experienced in dealing with unexpected detours." He turned to Lily. "Remember what we always say when things don't go according to plan?" Lily sniffled but recited, "Plan B might be even better." "That's right. And what's our motto about worrying?" "Worrying is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do but doesn't get you anywhere." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "That's quite philosophical for someone so young." Ethan shrugged. "Kids absorb everything. Might as well give them the good stuff to hold on to." He looked at Victoria's tablet. "I'm guessing this delay impacts some important business for you too?" Victoria normally would have shut down such a personal question, but she found herself answering. "A merger I've been working on for months. The signing is tomorrow, and now I'm worried the other company might use my absence as an excuse to entertain competing offers." "Sounds stressful," Ethan said without judgment. "Big company? Pinnacle Innovations. We develop AI security systems." Recognition flickered in Ethan's eyes. "You're Victoria Chen, aren't you? I saw your TED talk on ethical AI implementation in urban security systems." Victoria was taken aback. Most people outside the tech industry didn't follow her work that closely. "You're interested in AI ethics?" "I'm an architectural engineer specializing in smart building design. Your systems are often integrated into my projects." He smiled. "Your TED talk actually changed how I approach security infrastructure in residential buildings." For the first time in their interaction, Victoria looked at Ethan, truly looked at him. Beyond the rumpled shirt and the obvious exhaustion of single parenthood, she saw intelligence and genuine interest. "Most contractors just install whatever systems are cheapest or easiest," she said, testing his knowledge. Ethan shook his head. "That's short-sighted. The building will stand for decades, the systems should evolve with the needs of the residents." Your point about adaptive learning protocols versus hard-coded response patterns made me completely redesign a project I was working on in Seattle. Despite herself, Victoria felt a spark of professional interest. The multi-use development near Pike Place? That's the one. Ethan looked impressed that she knew it. We incorporated your Pinnacle Edge system throughout. Saved us about 30% on energy costs while improving security metrics by almost double the industry standard. Victoria found herself closing her tablet. The Edge system was actually developed after I had a break-in at my own home. The existing security systems were all reactive, not preventative. I wondered about that. There seemed to be something very personal about the design philosophy behind it. As the plane began its descent toward Denver, Victoria realized with surprise that she had been conversing with Ethan for almost half an hour, not about acquisitions or profit margins, but about the actual vision behind her technology. When was the last time someone had engaged with her ideas rather than her power or position? "Daddy, I'm hungry," Lily interrupted, reminding both adults of her presence. "I know, Pumpkin. They'll probably have food in the airport while we wait." Victoria glanced at her watch. "How long is your daughter's appointment?" "Perhaps once we land, I can have my team look into alternate transportation to San Francisco." Ethan's eyes widened slightly. "That's very kind, but I couldn't impose." "It's not kindness," Victoria said quickly. "It's efficiency. I need to get to San Francisco as well. Sharing resources makes sense." But even as she said it, Victoria knew she was lying to herself. For the first time in years, she was acting on impulse rather than calculated self-interest. Something about this father and daughter had punctured the careful isolation she had maintained for so long. As the plane touched down in Denver, Victoria found herself hoping the weather in San Francisco wouldn't clear too quickly. The Denver airport was chaos. Hundreds of diverted passengers crowded the terminals, all trying to rebook flights or find accommodation. Victoria, used to bypassing such inconveniences with her executive status, found herself standing in line at the customer service desk like everyone else. The airline systems were overwhelmed, and even her premium member hotline was placing callers on hold. Beside her, Ethan maintained remarkable composure, entertaining Lily with a game involving spotting different colored suitcases. Victoria observed their interaction surreptitiously while trying her assistant's number again. "Marcus, it's me," she said when he finally answered. "I'm stuck in Denver." "What's the situation with Rivera?" Her COO's voice was tense. "They're definitely wavering, Victoria. Global Tech has apparently offered a 10% higher purchase price. The board is meeting tonight to discuss." Victoria felt her blood pressure rising. "That's absurd. Global Tech can't possibly integrate Rivera's technology into their ecosystem without gutting it. Get me on a video call with Zhang and tell him." "Victoria, I've tried. He's not taking calls until after their board meeting. Says any communication should go through official channels now." Victoria closed her eyes, calculating rapidly. "What time is their meeting?" 8 p.m. Pacific. "Book me on any flight to San Francisco, first class, business, economy, I don't care. And if you can't, get the corporate jet fueled and on standby in Denver. The jet's in for maintenance until tomorrow. I've been trying to book you on commercial, but with the weather system, everything's grounded until at least midnight." Victoria fought to keep her voice even. "Find me a solution, Marcus. That's what I pay you for." She ended the call more abruptly than she'd intended. When she turned around, she found Lily staring up at her with wide eyes. "Are you okay, Ms. Victoria? You look like my teacher when someone puts gum under the desk." Despite her stress, Victoria felt her lips twitch. "I'm fine. Just some work problems." Ethan gave her an understanding look. "Merger issues?" Victoria nodded, surprised again by how easily she was conversing with this stranger. "The other company is entertaining a competing offer while I'm stuck here. Years of work potentially unraveling because of a weather pattern." "That's rough," Ethan said sincerely. "Anything I can do to help?" Victoria was about to dismiss the offer when a thought occurred to her. "Actually, you mentioned you're an architectural engineer. How are you with creative problem solving?" Ethan smiled. "It's literally my job to find workarounds for seemingly impossible constraints." For the next hour, as they waited in the customer service line, Victoria found herself outlining the Rivera situation to Ethan. He asked surprisingly insightful questions about the technology overlap, the corporate culture differences, and the strategic advantages of the merger. "So the real value isn't just their security protocols, it's their adaptive learning algorithms?" Ethan asked as they finally reached the front of the line. Exactly. Global Tech just wants their client list and would probably dismantle the R&D team, which would be a tragedy. Rivera's lead developer, Dr. Patel, is brilliant but temperamental. He'd quit immediately if Global Tech took over. Next, please, called the harried customer service agent. Victoria stepped forward, ready to exert her executive authority, when she felt a small hand slip into hers. She looked down in surprise to see Lily standing beside her, their fingers intertwined as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Lily, Ethan said gently, Miss Chen probably doesn't want to hold hands. But Victoria didn't pull away. Something about the child's simple gesture of trust disarmed her completely. It's fine, she said softly, then turned to the agent. We need to get to San Francisco tonight. It's a medical emergency. The words came out before she'd even thought them through. The agent looked sympathetically at Lily. I'm so sorry, but all flights to San Francisco are grounded until at least midnight, possibly longer. The storm system is one of the worst they've had this season. What about Sacramento? Oakland? San Jose? Victoria pressed. The agent typed rapidly. San Jose has a flight leaving at 9 p.m., but it's completely full with a 40-person standby list already. Victoria felt Lily's hand tighten in hers. What about ground transportation? She asked, another idea forming. The railway might be an option, but it's a 20-hour journey from Denver to San Francisco. Victoria thanked the agent and led Ethan and Lily away from the counter. I have an alternative plan, she said. If we can get to Salt Lake City, my company has a regional office there with access to a private airstrip. The smaller airports often have more flexibility during weather events. Ethan looked doubtful. Salt Lake City is what, an 8-hour drive from here? 5.5 if we leave now and the traffic is good. Victoria pulled out her phone. I'm going to rent a car. Victoria, that's incredibly generous, but... It's not generosity, she interrupted. It's pragmatism. I need to get to San Francisco, you need to get to Stanford. Our goals align. But even as she said it, Victoria realized she wasn't being entirely honest with herself. Something about this little family had gotten under her skin. The thought of Lily missing her medical appointment actually bothered her more than the potential collapse of her merger. Within 30 minutes, Victoria had secured a luxury SUV from a rental agency that recognized her status. As they loaded their limited carry-on luggage into the vehicle, Lily bounced with unexpected excitement. Road trip. Daddy, can we play the license plate game? Ethan smiled apologetically at Victoria. We don't have to if it would distract you from driving. Victoria adjusted the driver's seat. I haven't played the license plate game since I was a child. I believe I still hold the family record for most states spotted on a single trip. Ethan's smile widened. Competitive, are we? I prefer to think of it as excellence-oriented, Victoria replied, but there was a hint of humor in her voice that surprised even her. As they pulled out of the airport, Victoria realized this was the first truly spontaneous thing she had done in years. Her life ran on carefully calibrated schedules and strategic planning. Yet here she was, embarking on a cross-state drive with virtual strangers, feeling something that almost resembled excitement. Daddy, I'm hungry, Lily announced as they merged onto the highway. Ethan reached into his backpack. I've got some apple slices and granola bars. I saw a sign for a place called Maggie's Kitchen about 10 miles ahead, Victoria said, surprising herself again. The reviews online are quite good. Since when did Victoria Chen check reviews for roadside diners? 30 minutes later, they were seated in a booth at Maggie's Kitchen, a homey establishment with checkered tablecloths and the smell of fresh-baked bread. Victoria couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten at a place without a sommelier. Lily colored her placemat with crayons provided by the waitress while Ethan studied the menu. Victoria surreptitiously checked her emails, finding several increasingly panicked messages from her executive team about the Rivera situation. Bad news? Ethan asked, noticing her frown. Victoria sighed. My COO thinks we're going to lose the deal. Rivera's board chair is apparently golfing buddies with Global Tech's CEO. Personal relationships can sometimes outweigh business logic, Ethan agreed. Though from what you've told me, this merger makes much more sense from a technological standpoint. Exactly. Victoria felt validated in a way her yes-men executives never provided. Global Tech will strip Rivera for parts. We would actually integrate their strengths and expand their research capabilities. Have you emphasized that point with Dr. Patel? The lead developer you mentioned? Victoria paused. No. Why would I? He's not on the board. Ethan raised an eyebrow. But from what you said, he's the heart and soul of their innovation. If he expressed a preference for Pinnacle over Global Tech, wouldn't that carry weight with the board? Victoria stared at him. It was such an obvious move that she'd completely overlooked it. In her world of balance sheets and quarterly projections, she sometimes forgot the human element. Ethan Parker, you may have just saved my merger, she said, immediately pulling out her phone to call Marcus. As Victoria stepped outside to make her call, Lily looked up at her father. Daddy, I like Ms. Victoria. She seems sad though. Ethan smoothed his daughter's hair. What makes you think she's sad? Lily considered this seriously. Her eyes don't match her mouth when she smiles. Like you after Mommy went to heaven. Ethan's face softened with a mixture of pride and pain. You notice a lot, don't you, pumpkin? Ms. Victoria needs friends, Lily declared with the simple certainty of childhood. When Victoria returned to the table, she found her usual salad order had been replaced with a plate of what the menu called Maggie's famous pot roast. I hope you don't mind, Ethan said. The waitress said it's what they're known for. Normally, Victoria would have been irritated by someone presuming to order for her. Instead, she found herself picking up her fork. I haven't had pot roast since my grandmother made it when I was about Lily's age. The first bite transported her back to Sunday dinners before her parents' divorce, before her father had remade her in his image, driven, perfectionist, and ultimately alone. Good? Ethan asked, watching her expression. Victoria nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Something was happening to her, something she couldn't control or analyze. This spontaneous road trip was awakening feelings she had carefully buried beneath years of ambition and self-protection. As they ate, Lily regaled them with stories from her first-grade class, complete with dramatic impressions of her teacher and classmates. Victoria found herself laughing genuinely for what felt like the first time in years. When the check came, Victoria reached for it automatically, but Ethan gently placed his hand on hers. Please, let me get this one. You're already doing so much with the car and everything else. Their eyes met, and Victoria felt a strange fluttering in her chest. His hand was warm and slightly calloused, the hand of someone who created things rather than just signed papers authorizing their creation. We can split it, she compromised, another unprecedented concession. Back on the road, with Lily dozing in the back seat, Victoria and Ethan fell into easy conversation. She learned he had been widowed 3 years earlier when his wife died of a similar heart condition to what Lily had inherited. He had shifted his architectural practice to allow for more flexibility with Lily's medical appointments, specializing in sustainable smart buildings that could be designed largely from his home office. In turn, Victoria found herself sharing details of her own life she rarely discussed, her parents' messy divorce when she was 12, her father's relentless pressure for academic and professional perfection, her mother's retreat into alcoholism and eventual early death while Victoria was in business school. Is that why you work so hard? Ethan asked quietly. To prove something to your father? The question was so direct, so incisive, that Victoria's hands tightened on the steering wheel. My father died 10 years ago. That doesn't mean you stop trying to prove yourself to him. Victoria was silent for a long moment. When did you become a psychologist in addition to an engineer? Ethan smiled sadly. Grief has a way of making amateur philosophers of us all. As darkness fell and they crossed into Utah, Victoria realized she felt more comfortable with this man she'd known for less than a day than with people she'd worked alongside for years. There was something about Ethan that made her feel seen, not as Victoria Chen, CEO of Pinnacle Innovations, but simply as Victoria, a woman with regrets and hopes and hidden vulnerabilities. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. "Tell me about Lily's condition," she said, wanting to understand more about their urgent journey to Stanford. Ethan's face grew serious. "It's called restrictive cardiomyopathy. Basically, the heart muscle becomes rigid and can't relax properly between beats. It's progressive and, eventually fatal without intervention." Victoria felt a chill. "And this doctor at Stanford? Dr. Mehra. He's pioneering a procedure using bioengineered tissue to replace the damaged portions of the heart. It's still experimental, but his early results have been promising. Tomorrow isn't the surgery, it's the consultation to determine if Lily's a candidate. And if she is? Then we begin the process. Tests, preparations. The actual procedure would be scheduled for a few months from now." Ethan looked back at his sleeping daughter. "She's so strong, you know. Stronger than I am most days." Victoria thought about the vibrant, curious child who had colored so carefully within the lines, who noticed that Victoria's eyes didn't match her smile. "She's remarkable," she said softly. "You've done an amazing job with her. I can't take much credit. Kate, my wife, laid such a strong foundation. I'm just trying not to mess it up. From what I've seen, you're doing far more than that." Their eyes met briefly in the darkness of the car, and Victoria felt that strange flutter again. What was happening to her? She had built her life around control and predictability, yet here she was, driving through the night with a man and child she barely knew, feeling emotions she had locked away years ago. As they approached Salt Lake City, Victoria's phone rang. It was Marcus. "Victoria, where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours. I'm about 30 minutes from Salt Lake. What's happening with Rivera? You're in Salt Lake City?" Marcus sounded bewildered. "Never mind. Listen, I contacted Dr. Patel like you suggested. You were right, he has enormous influence with the board. He's been arguing against the global tech offer all evening." Victoria felt a surge of hope. "So the deal is still alive?" "More than alive. Zhang just called me directly. They're postponing the board vote until you can join by video conference." "But Victoria, it has to be tonight. They're giving us a 9 p.m. window." Victoria checked her watch. It was already 7:15. "I'll be at our Salt Lake office by 8:30. Have everything ready." She ended the call and looked at Ethan. "Good news. The merger might still happen, thanks to your suggestion about approaching their lead developer." Ethan smiled. "Glad I could help. What's the plan now?" "We'll go straight to my company's regional office. I have a video conference at 9. Then we can see about getting a private flight to the Bay Area." As they pulled into the Pinnacle Innovations Salt Lake City office, Victoria was struck by how differently she was viewing this familiar corporate setting. The gleaming glass building that usually filled her with pride now seemed oddly sterile compared to the warm conversation she'd been sharing with Ethan. The night security guard recognized her immediately. "Ms. Chen. We weren't expecting you." "Emergency situation, Robert," she said, noticing his name badge for the first time. Had she ever bothered to learn the names of security staff before? "I need access to the executive conference room and arrangements for my guests." Within minutes, Victoria was seated at the head of a polished conference table, her tablet connected to the room's advanced video system. Ethan sat quietly to one side with a now-awake Lily, who was coloring again to stay occupied during the grown-up business. As Victoria prepared her notes for the video call, she found herself repeatedly glancing at father and daughter. Something about their presence grounded her, reminding her why this merger mattered beyond just market share and profit margins. At precisely 9 p.m., the screen lit up with the faces of Rivera's board members and Dr. Amir Patel, their lead developer. Ms. Chen, Chairman Zhang began formally. We appreciate you making yourself available despite your travel difficulties. Victoria straightened her blazer, professional mode fully engaged. Thank you for the accommodation, Chairman Zhang. I believe we have important matters to discuss. For the next 45 minutes, Victoria presented her vision for the integration of Rivera technologies into pinnacle innovations with a passion and humanity that surprised even herself. She spoke not just of market advantages and synergies, but of the expanded research opportunities for Dr. Patel's team, the preservation of Rivera's unique corporate culture, and the potential for their combined technologies to create security systems that genuinely improved people's lives. Our companies share more than compatible technology, she concluded. We share values. At Pinnacle, we believe in building systems that protect people without constraining them. Rivera's adaptive algorithms complement that philosophy perfectly. Together, we can create something neither company could achieve alone. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before Dr. Patel spoke. Ms. Chen, I must say this is not the presentation I expected from you. Your reputation is. He paused diplomatically, focused on efficiency and bottom-line results. Yet tonight you've spoken of research integrity and human-centered design in ways that align remarkably with our team's vision. Victoria glanced briefly at Ethan and Lily. Let's just say I've had a perspective shift recently. Sometimes it takes unexpected circumstances to remind us what truly matters. Chairman Zhang leaned forward. Ms. Chen, Global Tech's offer is 10% higher than Pinnacle's. From a strictly financial standpoint. With respect, Chairman, Victoria interrupted, Global Tech's offer is a mirage. Their technology infrastructure is incompatible with your systems. Integration would require massive overhauls that would effectively dismantle what makes Rivera special. Their history with acquisitions shows a pattern: buy, extract value, discard. Is that the legacy you want for Rivera? Zhang looked troubled. You speak quite directly, Ms. Chen. Because there's too much at stake for corporate niceties. Dr. Patel's team has created something extraordinary. I want to nurture it, not harvest it. Dr. Patel nodded slowly. She's right about Global Tech, Chairman. Their CTO contacted me directly today. His questions revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of our architecture. After another 20 minutes of discussion, Chairman Zhang called for a brief board consultation. As the video feed was muted from their end, Victoria exhaled slowly, suddenly aware of how tense she had been. That was amazing, Ethan said quietly. You spoke with such conviction. Victoria smiled tiredly. I meant every word. That's rare for me in these situations, I'm afraid. Maybe that's why it was so effective. Before Victoria could respond, the board came back online. Chairman Zhang's face was unreadable. Ms. Chen, the board has reached a decision. We are prepared to proceed with Pinnacle's acquisition offer, with 2 conditions. Victoria felt her heart rate accelerate. I'm listening. First, Dr. Patel must be given executive authority over the combined R&D division for at least 3 years. Victoria nodded. Already part of my plan. And the second condition? You must personally oversee the integration process. Not your deputies, not your COO. You, Ms. Chen. Dr. Patel has expressed confidence in your vision specifically, and the board agrees that your direct involvement is essential. Victoria hesitated only briefly. 6 months ago, she would have balked at such a hands-on requirement for an acquisition. Now, strangely, it felt right. I accept both conditions, Chairman Zhang. Shall we schedule the formal signing for next week? Zhang shook his head. Our legal team is preparing the documents now. If you can be in San Francisco by noon tomorrow, we can proceed immediately. After the call ended successfully, Victoria sat back in her chair, a complex mixture of emotions washing over her. Professional triumph, yes, but also something deeper, a sense that something fundamental had shifted in her approach to her work and perhaps her life. Congratulations, Ethan said warmly. That was quite something to witness. Victoria turned to him. I couldn't have done it without your insight about approaching Dr. Patel. Thank you. All I did was state the obvious. You did the hard part. Lily, who had been quietly coloring throughout the meeting, looked up. Does this mean you won, Ms. Victoria? Victoria smiled genuinely. Yes, Lily. I think everyone won tonight. After making several calls, Victoria arranged for a small private jet to take them from a local airstrip to San Carlos Airport, just south of San Francisco. The storm system was weakening, and the pilot believed they could navigate around the worst of it by taking a more easterly route. As they drove to the airstrip in the pre-dawn darkness, Lily fell asleep again in the back seat. Victoria found herself opening up to Ethan about her plans for the combined companies, her voice soft so as not to wake the child. I think I've been approaching business all wrong, she admitted. I've been so focused on metrics and market share that I forgot these companies are made of people with dreams and ambitions of their own. Ethan nodded. It's easy to lose sight of that when you're responsible for the big picture. That's no excuse. Victoria's hands tightened on the steering wheel. My father built his business that way, treating people as assets to be maximized or liabilities to be eliminated. I swore I'd never become him, yet here I am, 15 years later, using his playbook. It's never too late to change the game, Ethan said gently. From what I saw tonight, you already have. Victoria glanced at him, this kind, perceptive man who had somehow breached her carefully constructed defenses in less than 24 hours. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. After your wife died, how did you keep going? How did you prevent grief from turning you hard and closed off? Ethan was quiet for so long that Victoria thought she might have overstepped. Finally, he spoke. I didn't, at first. For months after Kate died, I was angry at the world, at the doctors who couldn't save her, at myself for not somehow preventing it. He looked back at Lily. But I had her. And Kate would have been so disappointed in me if I let my grief poison what we'd created together. So every morning, I would look in the mirror and ask myself, what kind of father would Kate want for Lily? And then I tried to be that man, even when it felt impossible. Victoria felt unexpected tears prick at her eyes. She would be proud of you. That much is obvious. Ethan smiled sadly. I hope so. What about you? What kind of leader would your younger self have wanted to become? The question struck Victoria like a physical blow. She had never thought about it that way, what the idealistic college student who had first dreamed of starting a technology company would think of the CEO she had become. Not this, she said quietly. Not someone who calculates the value of every interaction, who sees people as means to an end. I wanted to build something meaningful, something that made the world better. It's not too late for that either. As they arrived at the small airstrip where the chartered jet waited, Victoria made a decision. She pulled out her phone and called Marcus. I need you to make some changes to the Rivera integration plan, she said without preamble. Cancel the workforce reduction. All of it. Victoria, that will cut projected savings by almost 40%. Marcus protested. I'm aware of the numbers. But I've been thinking about Dr. Patel's team. Their innovation comes from their culture, their cohesion. Breaking that up to save money would be burning the village to save it. The board will have questions. Then I'll answer them, Victoria said firmly. This is the right move, Marcus. Trust me on this. As she ended the call, she caught Ethan watching her with a smile. "What?" she asked. "Nothing. Just, it's nice to see someone choose people over profits. Especially someone with the power to make it matter." The flight to San Carlos was bumpy but uneventful. Victoria spent most of it working on her tablet while Ethan and Lily played quiet games. As they began their descent, Lily pressed her face to the window. "Look, Daddy. The clouds look like mountains." Ethan leaned over to look. "They do, don't they? Those are called cumulus clouds." Victoria found herself joining them at the window. "When I was about your age, Lily, I used to imagine the clouds were cities where cloud people lived. Each different type of cloud was a different neighborhood." Lily looked at her with delight. "Did the cloud people have jobs?" "Of course. The really fluffy clouds were where the artists lived. The long, thin clouds were for the runners and dancers. And the big, dark storm clouds? Those were for the musicians who liked to make a lot of noise." Ethan's expression was one of pleasant surprise. "That's quite an imagination you had." Victoria felt her cheeks warm. "My mother encouraged it, before." She trailed off, then rallied. "Anyway, I haven't thought about that in years." As they landed and disembarked, the reality of their imminent separation hit Victoria with unexpected force. She had arranged for a car to take Ethan and Lily directly to Stanford Medical Center, while another would take her to the Rivera Technologies headquarters in San Francisco. Standing on the tarmac, Victoria suddenly felt awkward. "Well, I guess this is where we part ways." Ethan nodded, his expression unreadable. "Thank you for everything. You've quite literally changed our lives." "You changed mine too," Victoria said softly, surprised by how much she meant it. Lily broke the moment by throwing her arms around Victoria's waist. "Thank you for helping us get to my doctor appointment, Ms. Victoria. And for telling me about the cloud people." Victoria hesitantly placed her hand on the child's head, feeling something crack open inside her chest. "You're very welcome, Lily. I hope your appointment goes well." As Ethan and Lily walked toward their waiting car, Victoria felt an irrational urge to call them back, to delay this goodbye that somehow felt premature. Instead, she straightened her blazer and turned toward her own vehicle. "Ms. Victoria." Lily's voice made her turn back. The little girl was running toward her, clutching a piece of paper. "I made this for you on the plane." Victoria took the offered drawing. It showed 3 stick figures holding hands, a tall woman in what was clearly meant to be a business suit, a man with brown hair, and a small girl between them. Above them floated puffy clouds with smiling faces. Written in a child's careful printing were the words, "My new friends Victoria and the Cloud People." "Do you like it?" Lily asked anxiously. Victoria swallowed hard. "It's beautiful, Lily." "Thank you." "Lily, we need to go or we'll be late," Ethan called gently. The child gave Victoria one last quick hug before running back to her father. As their car pulled away, Ethan gave a small wave through the window. Victoria stood motionless, holding the drawing and feeling as though something precious and unexpected had just slipped through her fingers. The Rivera signing went flawlessly. Victoria spoke with confidence and warmth, emphasizing the human elements of the merger in ways that clearly resonated with the Rivera employees. Dr. Patel, initially wary, ended the day as an enthusiastic partner, already discussing potential research directions for their combined teams. Yet throughout it all, Victoria found her thoughts repeatedly drifting to Ethan and Lily. Were they at Stanford now? Had Lily qualified for the experimental procedure? Would the little girl be all right? By late afternoon, the formal proceedings were complete. Victoria found herself alone in the borrowed office at Rivera headquarters, staring at Lily's drawing, which she had carefully placed in a folder. Without allowing herself to overthink it, she pulled out her phone and called the number Ethan had given her, in case of travel emergencies. He answered on the 3rd ring. Victoria? Is everything okay? Yes, fine. The merger is complete. She paused. I was calling to ask about Lily's appointment. How did it go? There was a smile in Ethan's voice. She's a candidate. Dr. Mara thinks she's an excellent fit for the procedure. We're scheduling preliminary tests for next month. Victoria felt a wave of relief so intense it surprised her. That's wonderful news. I'm so glad. It wouldn't have happened without you. We would have missed the appointment entirely. I'm sure you would have found another way. Maybe. But not one that included making a new friend. The word friend hung between them, weighted with possibility. Victoria realized with sudden clarity that she didn't want this unexpected connection to end. Ethan, She began, then faltered. What was she doing? She had a company to run, a merger to integrate. She didn't have time for what, exactly? Victoria? Ethan prompted gently. She took a deep breath. I was wondering if perhaps you and Lily might like to have dinner tonight. To celebrate the good news. About the appointment, I mean. There was a pause that seemed to stretch forever. We'd love that, Ethan said finally. Lily was just asking about you, actually. She wanted to know if the cloud people in San Francisco were the same ones we saw on the plane. Victoria laughed, a free and unguarded sound that surprised even herself. Well, I think we should definitely discuss cloud people geography over dinner, then. They arranged to meet at a family-friendly restaurant near Ethan and Lily's hotel. As Victoria hung up, she caught her reflection in the office window, and for the first time in years, she noticed that her eyes matched her smile. 6 months later, Victoria stood in the observation area outside the operating room at Stanford Medical Center, watching the surgical team prepare for Lily's procedure. Beside her, Ethan paced nervously, his face drawn with worry. She's going to be fine, Victoria said, taking his hand. The gesture had become natural over the months since their unexpected road trip. Dr. Mara is the best there is. Ethan squeezed her hand gratefully. I know. It's just terrifying, Victoria finished for him. I know. And she did know. In the months since that fateful flight, Victoria had become a fixture in Ethan and Lily's life. It had started with dinner that night in San Francisco, which had stretched into hours of conversation and laughter. Then there had been breakfast the next morning, because Lily had insisted that Victoria needed to try the hotel's pancakes. Then a weekend visit to see a science museum exhibit that Lily was excited about. Then regular video calls that grew longer and more frequent. Somehow, without Victoria fully realizing it was happening, the walls she had built around her heart had crumbled completely. Her professional life had transformed as well. The Rivera integration was being hailed as a model of compassionate corporate merging. By preserving jobs and focusing on cultural alignment, productivity and innovation had actually increased. The stock price reflected this success, though Victoria found herself caring less about that metric than she once had. Ms. Chen? A nurse approached them. Dr. Mara says they're ready to begin. You can watch from here, but it will be several hours. Victoria nodded. We'll be here. As the surgery proceeded, Victoria and Ethan alternated between watching intently and distracting each other with conversation. Victoria had taken a full week away from Pinnacle, something that would have been unthinkable a year ago, to be here for Lily's procedure and initial recovery. I've been thinking, she said during one of their breaks from the window, about opening a Pinnacle research division in Seattle. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Seattle? It's a good tech hub, not too saturated like the Bay Area. And I know an excellent architectural engineer there who might be willing to consult on the building design. Ethan's eyes softened. Victoria Chen, are you considering relocating for us? I'm considering many things, she said carefully. Including that Lily will need regular follow-ups at Stanford, which is much closer to Seattle than to Boston. And that my life was quite empty before a certain flight got diverted. Ethan took both her hands in his. You know you don't have to move your entire company for us, right? We care about you, not your ability to rearrange the business world. Victoria smiled. I know. But maybe I want to rearrange my life into something more meaningful. Something with room for cloud people and coloring books and family. The word hung between them, fragile and hopeful. They hadn't defined their relationship, though it had deepened steadily over the months. Victoria had been careful not to press too quickly, aware that Ethan and Lily were still healing from their loss, that her own emotional availability was a work in progress. Before Ethan could respond, the operating room doors opened and Dr. Mera emerged, still in his surgical gown but smiling broadly. The procedure went perfectly, he announced. Lily's heart is accepting the bioengineered tissue exactly as we hoped. She's being moved to recovery now. Victoria felt tears of relief spring to her eyes as Ethan let out a shuddering breath. Without thinking, she threw her arms around him, and he held her tightly. She's going to be okay, he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Our girl is going to be okay. Our girl. The words warmed Victoria in places she hadn't known were cold. 1 year after their chance meeting on Flight 1427, Victoria stood on the balcony of her new Seattle home, watching Ethan and Lily in the garden below. Lily, fully recovered and bursting with energy, was directing her father in the placement of a bird feeder they had built together. No, Daddy. The birds need to be able to see it from the trees. Ethan, with exaggerated patience, moved the post 2 inches to the left. How's this, bird expert? Perfect. Lily declared, then caught sight of Victoria on the balcony. Victoria. Come see our feeder. I painted the roof to match the clouds. Victoria smiled and made her way down to the garden. The past year had brought changes she never could have imagined. Pinnacle's Seattle Research Campus was under construction, with Ethan's firm handling the architectural design. Victoria had restructured her role as CEO to allow for more delegation and less constant involvement, a change that had initially terrified her but ultimately proved liberating. And then there was her personal transformation. The Ice Empress of Silicon Valley had thawed completely, discovering a capacity for joy and connection she had forgotten existed. She had learned to color outside the lines, to value pancake breakfasts as much as board meetings, to measure success in smiles rather than stock options. What do you think? Ethan asked as she approached, slipping his arm around her waist with easy affection. Lily insists the local chickadees are very particular about their dining establishments. It's beautiful, Victoria said, admiring the small wooden structure with its carefully painted roof resembling a blue sky with fluffy white clouds. Very architecturally sound. High praise from someone who lives in a house with smart windows that tint automatically based on the angle of the sun, Ethan teased. Some technology is worth the investment, Victoria defended with a smile. Especially when a certain architect insists on floor-to-ceiling windows in every room. I like natural light. Sue me. Their playful banter was interrupted by Lily tugging on Victoria's hand. Can we have hot chocolate? I think the birds might take a while to find their new restaurant. Excellent suggestion, Victoria agreed. I think this calls for the special hot chocolate. With mini marshmallows. As they walked toward the house, Victoria felt a contentment so profound it nearly overwhelmed her. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, undoubtedly work, perhaps the new Rivera Pinnacle security system that was revolutionizing the industry, but for once, she let it wait. Inside, as Victoria prepared the hot chocolate and listened to Lily's detailed explanation of different bird feeding habits, Ethan pulled a small box from his pocket and set it on the counter. Victoria froze, her eyes fixed on the unmistakable velvet case. Ethan? He smiled nervously. I had planned something more elaborate, but, when I saw you watching us from the balcony just now, I realized I couldn't wait another minute. Lily bounced excitedly. Open it, Victoria. Open it. With trembling fingers, Victoria lifted the lid. Inside was a stunning yet understated diamond ring with subtle blue sapphires on either side. The blue is for the sky, Ethan said softly. Because you taught Lily about the cloud people, and somehow brought sunshine back into our lives when we were lost in the storm. Victoria felt tears welling in her eyes. Ethan. He took her hand. A year ago, I boarded a plane with Lily, worried about her future and not seeing a clear path forward. I sat next to a woman who seemed completely closed off to the world. Now I can't imagine my life, our life, without you. We practiced this speech lots of times, Lily stage whispered, making both adults laugh through their tears. Victoria Chen, Ethan continued, will you marry me? Will you be my wife and Lily's? Yes, Victoria interrupted, unable to wait for him to finish. Yes to everything. As Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, Lily wrapped her arms around both of their legs in a group hug. Does this mean you'll be my mom now? She asked, looking up at Victoria with those same curious eyes that had first pierced Victoria's carefully constructed armor. Victoria knelt down to Lily's level. I would be honored to be your mom. If that's what you want. Lily nodded solemnly. I think my first mom would be happy. She always told me that everyone deserves someone who makes their heart smile. Victoria gathered the child in her arms, marveling at the wisdom and resilience of this extraordinary little person. Over Lily's shoulder, she met Ethan's gaze, seeing in it the same wonder and gratitude she felt. You know, Victoria said as she stood, keeping one arm around Lily and reaching for Ethan with the other, there's something I never told you about that flight where we met. What's that? Ethan asked, drawing both of them close. It really was meant to be my last flight. I was planning to close the Rivera deal and then accept a position on the East Coast that would have meant almost no travel. I was tired of planes and hotels and constant movement. And now? Victoria smiled, looking around the warm kitchen of their home, at the bird feeder visible through the window, at the hot chocolate cooling on the counter, at the ring glittering on her finger, and most importantly, at the two people who had changed everything. Now I realize it wasn't my last flight at all. It was my first. My first real journey to the life I was meant to live all along. Outside, a small chickadee discovered the new feeder and perched on its cloud-painted roof, as if offering its approval of this new family and all the possibilities that lay ahead for them. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that transformation can happen when we least expect it, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of connection and change. Sometimes, the most important journeys are the ones we never planned to take, and the most precious destinations are the hearts we never expected to find our way into.